Well, what did we really expect, right? Marc Andre Fleury does exactly perfectly what he and the Minnesota Wild would have wanted to do in his final game in Montreal tonight. The Minnesota Wild shut out the Montreal Canadiens 4-0. This is probably the happiest I've ever been after a Canadiens loss. Happy for the other team. This is probably the happiest I've ever been. This is going to be a quick one because we know the story. We know the story of this game. Raphael Harvey-Pinard playing his first game this season. Like Jaden Struble coming in for Caden Gooley. Jakub Dobeš watching a master at work. That's what Jakub Dobeš got a front row seat to tonight, was Marc Andre Fleury posting a 4-0 shutout. And let's go to the record books right now, because Marc Andre Fleury has now moved up 2 spots on the all-time shutout list for NHL goaltenders. He was in 12th place, and now with his 76th shutout in the NHL, he has now tied Ed Belfour and Tony Esposito for 10th and 11th place respectively. So he's basically tied with Tony Esposito at 76, and he needs one more shutout to tie Roberto Luongo for 77 shutouts, which would bring him into 9th all-time, and then the Dominic Hasek, 81 shutouts at 8th all-time, and then he can just keep going up from there. What a night for Marc Andre Fleury. It all started from the time the national anthem played and the camera focused in on Marc Andre Fleury, the chants of Fleury throughout the Bell Center all night long. And, we could just jump right to the way the game ended. And Mike Matheson, favorite Montreal Canadian right now, favorite Montreal Canadiens defenseman by most fans, approached Nick Suzuki, we heard, about shaking Marc Andre Fleury's hand at the end of this game, which is a very classy gesture, of course, and anybody would have done it. But it took a veteran to recognize that maybe, and that's what happened, right? And we also got to see Marc Andre Fleury show flashes of greatness again on that huge stack the pad save on Josh Anderson. I don't have the clip here, but you'll see it if you watch the game or you watch the highlights. It was awesome. I mean, he earned the shutout. You could just tell Minnesota was playing that boring, stingy defensive hockey all night long, and that's the result, right? The Canadiens just could not crack it. They could not crack the door open on Marc Andre Fleury. It was shutting it down from the get-go. So shout out to them. Some bad defensive plays by Arbor Jacka and Alexander Carrier that led to the first 2 goals, and actually Marco Rossi was one of the first 2 goals. And I just got to say, like, regardless of what happened tonight and how the defensive lapses and what have you, this was Marc Andre Fleury's night before it even started, and then he proved why he's one of the greatest of all time, right? He's going to go down to the Hockey Hall of Fame. He's going to go down as one of the greatest of all time to win a Stanley Cup with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I just want to talk quickly about my favorite Marc Andre Fleury moment in the Bell Center specifically is when Carey Price, and you saw it on my thumbnail, Carey Price did the whole, folding his arms celebration after the shutout or the shootout victory. And then 6 days later, this is going back in like the early 2010s, 6 days later, Marc Andre Fleury does the same thing right back to Carey Price in the Bell Center. So, yeah, I mean, respect to him for that, because that was one of my favorite moments. And then the greatest moment of all time for Marc Andre Fleury has to come from the Stanley Cup winning save in Game 7 in Detroit in 2009 when the Pittsburgh Penguins win the Stanley Cup. And Marc Andre Fleury makes that save on Lindstrom at the very end of the game. Lindstrom and seals it, right, and lifts that Stanley Cup, as we just saw right there. So, not a whole lot to say about this game other than it was a night for greatness, and the Bell Center did what the Bell Center does. They respect the greats. They fully respect the greats. Marc Andre Fleury is a French-Canadian-born goaltender, one of the greatest of all time to play, and it's crazy to think how fast these careers go by, because I can remember pretty much all of his career, right? 2003, he was drafted. But he was playing pretty much the same amount of time as Carey Price, right? I mean, like those two, and that's why I got Carey's jersey on. But one of the greatest of all time. I don't have much more to say than that. Quite frankly, this was his night. It really was. He proved it. The fans were part of it, and I'm sure it's a night that he's never going to forget either. It was a special one. It's a special one, right? At this point in the rebuild, our great days again are coming. But this was a night to celebrate one of the greatest of all time. In the Flower himself, second only to Guy Lafleur, of course. But anyway, you guys get where I'm coming from. The heart is there, and Flower is one of the greatest of all time. He will be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He's one of the best to ever do it, and he's not done quite yet. hope Minnesota makes a good run for him. And shout out, hats off to Marc Andre Fleury. Congratulations on this tiny little YouTube channel where a few people watch. And I'm blessed to do this and be able to talk about this game of hockey and some of the greatest that have ever played it. And Marc Andre Fleury is certainly one of them. So thank you all. God bless you. Congratulations, Marc Andre. You are one of the greatest, one of the classiest to ever play the game. You are loved. We thank you. We bless you, man. Thank you very much. We'll see you guys soon. Ciao for now.